listening is so important, and especially making it easy for people to tell you when you're making a mistake. I will say a lot of the accidents we see in any line of work, but my line of work, I go back. I like to use the story of the Costa Concordia. You might remember in 2012, the Costa Concordia ran aground off the coast of Italy.
That was that cruise ship, right?
A cruise ship. 35 people lost their lives needlessly. I say needlessly. And we call it an accident. It wasn't an accident. In this day and age, it is impossible that there were not at least a half a dozen people within earshot of the captain who knew that the ship was going to run aground. And none of them said anything. And my conclusion from that is they were either too afraid to say something, or they were happy the ship was going to run aground because the captain would get fired. You cannot let yourself get in that situation. You have to make people tell you, comfortable saying, Captain, that is really a dumb idea. Or Captain, don't you mean turn left, not right? And if you're the captain that people cannot approach and say you're making a mistake, you're going to make a mistake. And there are people around you that want you to succeed if you give them the opportunity. And then finally, I end with these two things. Number one, you got to know your business. I mean, when I was chief engineer on the carrier, I had 750 engineers. Now, I was not capable or competent to go down and repair a main feed pump, but I understood the basics of how the main feed pump was supposed to be fixed. I understood enough to know when I went down there to see if the people that were there were capable and competent and doing a good job. And I could make good decisions with regard to who ought to be doing the job, that kind of thing. So you have to know yourself. And then the last thing, and I think this is really foundational, right, along with the first one of integrity, is good leaders take care of their people. They focus on their people. That principle came from Douglas Southall Freeman, who's a great Civil War historian, who was particularly focused on General Robert E. Lee and Lee's lieutenants. And he wrote a lot of history relating to him and to other leaders in the Civil War. And he distilled principles of leadership from that. And his three principles that he distilled in modern vernacular are: number one, know your stuff; number two, be a person of high character; and number three, take care of your people. He said that's what he viewed military leadership as being built on. And that's where my leadership training started. So that's a really long answer to that question, but it's not an easy question.
That was a great answer. And, you know, one of our recent guests on the show, Bob Donegan, president of Ivers, that kind of surprised me when he said that. He said, our goal at Ivers is to first and foremost take care of our people. He said, because if you don't do that, how do you expect those people to then care in a genuine way for the public if they don't feel supported by their leadership?
Amen. You know, if you want people to care about your mission and what you're trying to accomplish, you have to show that you care about them, and that you care not just about them helping you achieve your goals, but you're willing to work hard to help them achieve their goals. And for some people, that's a big stumbling block because, you know, right now the job market is pretty tight. And so you don't want to lose a valued employee. And if you have a really top-notch, somebody that, you know, wants to be an astronaut that's working at Ivars, you're going to, even if you help them achieve that goal in that direction, they're eventually going to move on and go to flight training or, you know, someplace else. And, you know, some people see that as, oh no, that means I'm going to have to hire somebody else. They miss some key things that are really good about it when you help people move on to a better job and toward their goal. Number one, you send an ambassador out into the workplace. And so when they go to work somewhere else and somebody says, what was it like working at Ivars? They're going to say, wow, it was great. It was a great place to work. I'd recommend that to anybody. Okay. Do you want people saying that? Yeah. You know, would you take your family there to eat? Yeah, that's good. Number two, it gives you an opportunity to promote from within. And promoting from within is one of the best things you can do. You have to be able to recognize your best performing people. You have to be able to recognize people. And one of the best ways you can recognize them is by giving them a promotion. If all you do every time there's a vacancy is go out and try to hire somebody from off the street that has the right qualifications, you're missing a huge opportunity. And number 3 is if you have a big enough organization, and ours is a big enough organization, it's always good to have at least one extra person to fill the vacancy when it occurs, so that you don't end up like when somebody does leave for a good reason to go out and achieve their goal, you don't find yourself suddenly shorthanded. A lot of organizations like to say, we only hire the best people. And whenever I hear somebody say that, I said, oh, then you must hire the best people anytime one of them walks through the door, because they don't walk through the door every day. Every time you interview somebody and say, boy, I'd really like to have them on my team, you need to hire them then. You need to find a way to hire them, whether you have an opening or not, because you will have an opening sooner or later. Get them on board, get them up to speed, and they will pay you back. If you want the best people, you have to hire them when they come through the door. And I would make one more big digression here. Heads up, about half the best people on the planet turn out to be women. And, lately there's been a lot of discussion about diversity, equity, and inclusion, and it just really tightens my jaws, because I will tell you, my whole career, I've been in a highly diverse workforce. And it wasn't something that somebody forced on me because it was the right thing to do. It was because we need a military that looks like our country. And when I first started, we didn't have women there. I mean, we had all people from all walks of life, and we had people from all racial, ethnic, and national backgrounds that worked together like a heck of a team. And I learned to respect everybody. But we didn't have women. And there were women in certain jobs ashore, but not on board ship. Well, we started bringing women on board ship, and it was difficult because it was a big cultural change. It took me about a year to recognize that the women were really doing us a great favor. They were smarter, they were better, and they were making the Navy better. Now we have a woman who is the senior officer in the whole Navy. And that shouldn't surprise anybody. And I've had people say to me, well, she certainly didn't earn that job. And I say, that's crazy. She joined the Navy 35 years ago. Can you imagine what the Navy was like when she joined it? Women weren't allowed to go to sea on combat ships when she came into the Navy. And when the first opportunities opened up, she jumped at the opportunity. She went out there, she excelled. She fought her way up in a community that was very male dominated and proved that she was excellent at every level. My first introduction to women aboard ship was when I was an admiral. And I had women that were on my ships that I was the commander of, including as captains of the ships. And they were extraordinary. They were extraordinary. The key thing I want to emphasize here is having a diverse workforce gets you better results. The more different points of view and ways of looking at problems you have, the better solutions you're going to come up with. And women look at things differently than men. And I'm not being quantitative or qualitative about that. We just have different experiences in our life. And that's a strength. That's not a weakness. And I think people that are out there at war with diversity, equity, and inclusion on the assumption that anytime somebody who is in one of the less favored groups, women, people of color, is put in a position of responsibility, it has to be some kind of, that means that some better qualified person didn't get the job. That's crazy. That is crazy. We don't put unqualified people in important jobs.